woke up this morning and there were about 3 or 4 shows that I was like, I need to probably get to those. And then I decided to watch Ping Pong. Hey, it's Romania Black. I should be watching a different show. I should be doing about 6 other things, but I just woke up and I really wanted to watch Ping Pong because episodes 1 and episode 2 were so good. So yes, we're on episode 3 of Ping Pong the animation. I'm super excited. Smile is such a interesting sports anime protagonist. He's very, very much like Ray from March Comes In Like a Lion at the beginning of the series. And so I'm going to be very curious to see how his character grows. I like his relationship with Pico. I like his relationship with the table tennis. With the table tennis club. Him and the coach last episode, I'm a little bit worried because it just seemed like Smile just walked away. And I'm like, you go check on that coach, make sure he's okay. I guess you're not worried. I guess you think he's fine, so it's okay. But the inner highs are coming up. The inner high preliminaries. I'm assuming that Smile's not going to join. I'm assuming Smile's not going to do anything. I don't know. Is Smile quitting? We don't know. We don't know what Smile's doing. So that's a big question. But the animation and the character work and everything so far has been really, really good. We've introduced Kong, obviously, who's my man. I love Kong. And then we've also introduced the one guy that looks like Almine from Haikyuu. He's in there as well. And so we've seen him. So it's like, okay, we've got these characters now. What we gonna do? So tis the question. So I'm really excited to see how this goes. The only comment I wanted to make before we start the video is that in episode 2, the image of, there's that one shot, it's the thumbnail, it's my favorite shot from the episode, of the man in the locker room with the butterfly wings, like he's gone through the metamorphosis and evolved. In the episode and reaction, I thought it was Smile, but when I went back to make the thumbnail, and you probably have all commented about it at this point, but when I went back to do the thumbnail, there were no glasses on the character. So I was like, oh, and Smile is definitively known by his glasses. So I was like, is it the coach? Was it the coach going through his own metamorphosis, and the coach was calling back in that moment to his own past, his own upbringing, his own relationship to table tennis and how he evolved, and he's trying to encourage Smile to go down that same path? Is there a flashback incoming with the coach? I don't know, but it wasn't Smile in the locker room in that moment. It was maybe the coach. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, that's all I got right now as of this moment. Now, once y'all are able to start seeing these episodes, I'm sure there's going to be more comments. But anyway, I want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon to thank them so much for all of their support as I watch these series. So special thanks to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Bryant Reed, to Dana, to Damage3245, to Danger Zone, to Destiny Marie, to Danny Donmai, to Devorin, to Ichu, to Eric, to Fisho, to Ghostly Turnip, to El Freya, Liam Poles, Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Nicholas, Nago, Maroni W, Shimoyama, Sunspots, Trails, Translucent Men, and Starman AA. Thank you all so much for your support and for everyone's support on Patreon and YouTube. I really appreciate it. All of my love. Yeah. So, I have no clue what's going to happen this episode, but I'm really excited to see it. So, in any case, we are going to start episode 3 of Ping Pong. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's see what Smile's choice is, shall we? Wow, so episode 3, and our main character's out of the inner high preliminaries. Episode 3! Wow, okay. Just episode 3 alone. All right. Wow. I should have brought Whiteboard Kun out, but maybe we'll bring Whiteboard Kun out at the start of next episode and kind of go out through everybody, because it's interesting. We have all these players that we've been introduced to so far, and they all have seemingly different motivations and seemingly different reasons for the things that they're doing. So yeah, probably the beginning of the next episode, we'll kind of like, I'll start the episode out with Whiteboard Kun laying out whatever we're going to talk about here, because I think it's relatively important. But I did not expect for Smile to be facing Kong in this episode 3 of 11. So okay, wasn't expecting that. I also was not expecting for Smile to lose against Kong, but if the fact that he's playing him only in episode 3, I don't want an answer to this question. What I'm about to say is kind of a rhetorical question. I don't want you all to answer it in the comments, so please do not. Just let me find out in the next few weeks. But I'm curious because, like, I'm gonna compare a lot to Haikyuu in this episode because I see some similarities. But in Haikyuu, you have the inner high preliminaries, and then you have like a follow-up tournament after that. And it's the same thing in Ace of the Diamond. There's the inner high preliminaries, and there's a follow-up tournament. There's like a fall tournament. In Kuroko's basketball, there's the inner high preliminaries, and there's the Winter Cup. So even though Smile is out of the inner high preliminaries in this episode, we still have, 8 more episodes to go. I definitely feel like there could be a rematch between Kong and Smile. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to be Kurama versus Kong, and Kurama sends him home. And that's the difference between Kurama and Smile. It very much could be, because this series is not very long. But I felt like it was really interesting that Smile was out this episode. Now, whether or not he plays in a future tournament or in like a consolation match, I don't know. But I get why he lost in this episode. He let Kong win for a number of reasons, and we're going to talk about that as we go, but I was not expecting that this episode. So we start the episode out with the butterfly flying through the trees, and that's very much the representation. The coach is bound and determined. That coach is like, Koizumi is like, Smile will be a monster when he finally emerges out of his cocoon and is fully realized and realizes what he wants to do. He'll be a monster. And he's like, I want to gently push him in that direction, because I think that'd be good for him. So it's like, okay. All right. I want to give Smile a little bit of credit here, because honestly, Smile is such an intriguing protagonist. He's full of contradictions, is what it is. He's full of contradictions. He claims he's a robot. He claims he's unfeeling. He claims that nothing bothers him, nothing affects him. He's just doing table tennis to pass the time because he's bored. And he doesn't have any attachment to it whatsoever. But he's a complete contradiction, because everyone around him, Cosmo's like, you're emotional. You show all your emotions on your face. You instantly react to things, which is contradictory to the robot thing. When he meets the coach's wife here in a second, she's like, you know what? You're actually a lot more soft than you let on. And he's like, Like, Smile is constantly trying to put off this persona of being a robot and not caring, but everything about him suggests the opposite, which is so interesting. And he's in constant denial about it. And it's like, Smile does not want to embrace who he is. He wants to put on this persona, which is interesting. At first, when I saw the woman, the way that her haircut is, I thought that she was the guy that looks like Cynthia from Rugrats. I thought it was his mom. And I was like, oh, Smile's going to meet the mom of the one guy. But no, it's the coach's wife. You've come to check on my husband. And he's like, oh, just sore muscles, he says. He's a man over 70, so of course. And I like that she's like, come on in. And Smile's like, no. He came to check on him, but he's not going to go in the house. And she's like, oh, well, you could come and stay for dinner. And he's like, I don't want to be in someone's house. And the moment he says he doesn't want to come in, there's a shot of a bird leaving a branch, showing that Smile is just running away. He's just running away. He's flying. It's fight or flight. And the thing about Smile that is rather frustrating from our perspective, and I know is frustrating from the coach's perspective and from their opponent's perspective, is the fact that when it comes down to it, as of right now, Smile doesn't fight. He flies away. He immediately leaves. He doesn't want to stick around. He doesn't want to take ownership. He doesn't want to bear responsibility. He vamushkas. He left after the coach fell. He didn't want to go in and see the coach when he was recovering, even though he clearly cares about it. He runs away. And honestly, I feel like Kong I wonder if Kong is going to realize that Smile threw the match. I wonder if Kong's going to realize that Smile threw the match and is going to call him out on it. Now, Kong might not, because Kong doesn't want to admit that he was going to lose, because he's kind of got an ego. And so Kong may just be like, oh yeah, I won. But he's going to know that Smile probably went easy on him, even though there was a myriad of excuses that were given that we'll talk about. Kurama would call Smile out. Kurama would be like, you lost on purpose. You lost on purpose to make a point. And that's not cool. And Smile's like, well, I absolutely love that Smile, Kong, and Kurama have this triangular relationship where Kurama and Kong don't get along. Their philosophies are completely different. And Smile, who can't really commit to a philosophy, is kind of caught between both of their interests. But I also like that I feel like there's also this contrast of Kong is obsessed with Smile because he thinks he's competition. Now, whether he calls him out or not after winning against him in this round, I don't know. But I could feel Kong getting pissed because if Kong's like, did you pity me? Did you take sympathy on me and let me win because you pitied me? And then getting super mad about it. But then Kurama doesn't like Smile at all. Kurama is interested in Smile because I think he thinks he can fix him or change him and show him the light. But I feel like he absolutely is repulsed by Smile's philosophy, and Kong could care less about that. He's just interested in Smile's skills and the fact that it's competition. So yeah, I think that Kong and Kurama will make it into the final of this inter preliminaries. I think they'll make it into the final, the two of them. And I think that they're going to face each other, and it's going to be this warring of philosophies, of Kurama's philosophy versus Kong's philosophy. And I really want to see it, honestly. This is one of the rare series where, because we know that Smile is in this evolutionary period, and he's just growing as a little caterpillar right now, we're not ready to see him in a final round. He's not ready to be in a final round because he doesn't take it seriously, right? He doesn't take it seriously at all. So I would rather, in the next episode or two, see the inter-high finals and see Kurama versus Kong. I think that would be really cool. And then to see these two philosophies on display. And I would want Smile to watch that match and then decide what he wants to do after that. So we'll see if that actually ends up happening. But yeah, poor Smile. He doesn't want to stick around. Doesn't want to stick around and see the coach. And the wife was super nice. And he's like, I don't enjoy eating in other people's homes. And she says, so that's how it is. She's like, you just don't want to go in and let the coach know that you are caring about him. Okay. She's like, having a weird old man chasing you around must be tough. She's like, and I'm sure, here's the thing. Because he says, yeah, it's a nuisance. And she's like, you're not very lovable, are you? And to that, Smile's like, sorry. Yeah, because Smile, at the end of the day, he doesn't want to, it's funny. He's accepted that people think he's a robot, but he doesn't really want to be a robot, But he's come to accept that that's just part of him because that's what everybody says. So when she says, you're not very lovable, are you? And he's just kind of reminded, like, this is how he is. But what I like is that the coach's wife says, no, that's fine. I find that wonderful. She married the coach. The coach doesn't seem like at times he could be very lovable either, but she's like, it's kind of a type. So some people like people like that. And that's, all folks, different strokes for different folks. So I like that she's like, no, I like that blunt attitude. You don't put on airs. It's just how you are. And he's just like, it's like, look, Smile, there are opportunities for you yet. Just don't worry. And then he says he'll be back. And she's like, I'm waiting. I'll be curious if he comes back or not. That's a pretty nice house that they have here. And she says, what an adorable boy. Like the first person to call Smile adorable. She says that cool look in his eyes. And he says he'll become a monster someday. Yeah. I feel like the chrysalis was about to burst open in this episode, and then Smile retreated back into the cocoon. He didn't quite get out of the cocoon. He retreated back into it. He was getting close, but... Also, I like the Roomba. I like the Roomba just like getting there and looking around. That's such a cool, cute little detail. So, all right. So the inter-high, this year's inter-high, Ryuichi. Truth can be found in victory. So Kazuma's first name is Ryuichi, which Ryu is dragon, isn't it? But yeah, so this high school that we go to, or Kazuma goes to, where they all shave their heads like cultish monks, is interesting because it's the polar opposite of the club that Smile goes to. And I could see now, looking at this high school with their bronze statue of table tennis players, why they would kind of look down upon the coach's school because it's so ragtag and you know, this feels like Shiratorizawa from Haikyuu, right? The school that Kazuma goes to, they even have the purple, which I know in sports anime, schools that have purple uniforms, I think of Run with the Wind, with Fujimoto's school. I think of Shiratorizawa with Ushijima. I think of this school. Any school has a purple uniform. It's usually like regal, very upper class, maybe snobby. Although Shiratorizawa and them aren't snobby, but they're very elite. Elite's the word. Elite. And so this feels like Shiratorizawa, whereas Smile's school definitely feels like Krasno. Definitely feels ragtag. But yeah, truth can be found in victory. Oh, can it now? I would argue truth can be found in failure because you realize your truths about yourself when you fail, you know. But different philosophies. You need to spread. Now, here's the main thing. You need to spread the word about the quality of our products by being successful on a global level. And they're like, yes, sir, but I'm worried about the team competition. So you go from the wall of trophies, you go from it being like individual little pictures of all of them to suddenly the overarching picture. It's like all those little victories are adding up to this overall victory. So everything that is in the table tennis tournament has a Poseidon logo on it. The rackets, the balls, the lotions, everything has a Poseidon logo, even the little table tennis balls. So this guy obviously has a stake or is one of the main people in the Poseidon industry. And they're like, if we're going to promote our products on a global scale, we're like the Japanese go-to for this. But if we want to go further, then we have to show that our products work in competition. And I'm like, oh, there's a capitalist aim to it. Oh, that's nice. Honestly, that wasn't present in Haikyuu and some other sports anime that I've watched. There's not really that capitalist angle to it, but this seems the most realistic. So what's interesting is that Kazuma never complains. Kazuma they're like any chinks in your armor while they're small and you'll cut off the entire part. And so I really like Kazuma kind of going to the head coach, aka CEO, saying there's a chopper at Katase High who interests me. And they're Katase, Koizumi, is he strong? And he's like, I don't know yet. And they say, bring him here, and I'll trust this to you and Taku. Taku's the one that knows them from table tennis days at the one place. To compromise is to cut off your own arm. If you lose, you'll take responsibility. My thing is, Kazuma accepts all of this. I'm like, there is a sleaze factor to this high school where it's not just the prestige, but it's like this capitalistic kind of sacrificial sort of angle to it that I'm like, ooh, that seems kind of cultish and creepy and slimy. But Kazuma is not slimy. Kazuma takes it very seriously. And from Kazuma's perspective, it feels like he's like, well, I want to go to the best of the best. And this is the best of the best. And this is what is deserving of me and what I've earned. So it's interesting that Kazuma kind of is the good apple that seems to be floating in a barrel of like bad water. Right? And I'm not saying that the other table tennis players on that school's team are bad either, but the environment they're in just seems kind of toxic just from what we've seen and what he says. But I could be wrong. Maybe he's fine with it, but it's interesting. But so basically they want to bring Smile to that high school. I could not see Smile staying one day in that high school. No. And he kind of talks about it as we go. So the Tamura Table Tennis Hall, which is where everybody goes to play table tennis in the area. Pico is, if anything, consistent, because Pico was having the worst day last episode after losing to Kong. He was like, I'm quitting table tennis. I'm never coming back. He's so wishy-washy. And then now he's like, yeah, it'll take you another century before you can beat me. And I'm like, The thing about it is, Smile and Pico, I think, are very different in terms of Smile takes things very close to heart. He doesn't want to admit he's an empath. He doesn't want to admit that he takes things so seriously and they really affect him. Whereas Pico, it's like water off a duck's back. Pico, he's like, oh, I lost. And he cries about it for 5 minutes. He's like, okay, I'm fine. And I know people like that in real life, that they just, everything just hits them in the biggest, most dramatic way. And then a day later, they're like, yeah, okay, I'm cool. And Smile's not like that. Smile seems to be the type that will dwell on something and let it deeply root itself inside of his heart, and it'll just like make him like unable to sleep. And Pico's like, oh, well, that happened. So I like that these two best friends are so different, right? And then I also like Obaba the woman, which granted, she's ran this table tennis hall for a while. I'm sure even the other coaches in the area know about her. If you've been running this hall where kids come and play table tennis for decades, I'm sure that word gets around. And I love that they're like, oh, at the table tennis hall with Obaba, all right. I'm like, I just love that she's also like, she's like Smile with Koizumi. That's a dangerous combination because she knows him, right? She's like, I've seen how he has been with other students. And here's the thing too with that is that Koizumi has been around for a long time. He's 70, so he's been coaching for a while. I'm sure Smile is not the first kid he's helped break out of his chrysalis, right? I'm sure Smile's not the first. He's gotten to a point where he can recognize talent, latent talent, and its potential. So I'm sure that Smile is not unique in that regard. And even the old woman at the table hall, she's like, he's recognized Smile, huh? That's dangerous. Because she knows what's going to happen. She knows what could happen next. The OP this episode, amazing. Amazing. The black and white animation, amazing. I'm glad they gave nothing away in this OP. I hope this is the OP for the rest of the season because it's so damn good. It looks amazing, and I love every second of this OP, to be honest. Except for that gum thing at the end with Pico. What the fudge? They really were just out to make Kong look like the best thing since sliced bread. He just looks amazing. I love Kong. Kong is maybe... Smile is so intriguing, and I want to love Smile the most as my favorite character, but he's got some work to do. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for an Oikawa-like diva antagonist, and that is Kong, and I love him. He is my favorite. Every time he's on screen, I want to see more of him. And the way they animate him, he just looks fantastic. I loved that when we went through the tennis hall at the start, there was a rhythm and a cadence built up with the table tennis balls bopping back and forth. That was so cool. And I'm sure if you actually went to a game and heard it all, it would start to get in a rhythm like that. Also, the montages in this episode were amazing. You got to see everybody walking through. They're like, is that Kaio? They're all bald, so of course it's Kaio. Also, could you imagine Smile with his head shaved? No. So, don't think it's going to work out. The coach is like, where the hell is Smile? Where is he at? At first, I didn't know if Smile was going to show up. I was like, ooh, is he going to show up? But the Kanagawa Prefecture preliminaries. All right. Also, cool that everybody shows up. Like, every time I think of a sports anime, I'm like, are people going to show up for this sport since it's so niche? No, they do. But damn, Kong with them sunglasses. Look at him and his green jacket. He just has to look too cool for school. So the moment the coach looks at Kong and says, are you homesick or something? He's like, yeah, something like that. Kong doesn't show his emotion on his face. He has this cool persona and like everything's so perfect. And he has something to prove, and he acts like he's kind of above everybody. But you can kind of tell underneath the surface, he's sort of the opposite of Smile, where Smile presents all these like raging emotions like up front. And it's like the tip of the iceberg all the time. And with Kong, there is always this calm, cool veneer, but underneath it, you can kind of get that Kong has a lot at stake being here. If he fails, like Cosma points out, if he fails, then he's done. Like, he doesn't have anything to do. He won't have table tennis. He won't be able to go back to China and compete. He probably won't be able to stay here and compete. He's just done, right? But he doesn't want to show that because that would be a lot of pressure. That would make, be a lot to make you nervous and a lot at stake. And he doesn't want to show that. So he pushes off this cool demeanor. And Smile kind of realizes that towards the end of the match. But yeah, I like Smile's like, oh, come on. Or Pico's like, come on, Smile. He's just sitting there playing the video games. So... isn't it Taru coming up just now? Yeah, and then like cracking their heads together and just yelling at each other. Oh my god. Well, if it isn't Pico, I didn't see you there. Sure, and he's like, who the hell do you think you are? And Smile's just like, what the fudge? He's like, that worthless school's made you pretty arrogant. He's like, well, better than leeching off a branded school. I like the confrontation where they have their heads butted together is so Pico and him. I love it. I'm like, don't kill brain cells, boys. Don't kill any more than you have to. But I love that the one guy from Kaio, he's like, oh, you're at that ragtag ragamuffin dumpster school, and he's like, oh, you're leeching off a branded school because you got sponsorships. Like, it's so good. Yes. He's like, I'm playing in the first game. And Smile's just like, because Smile just doesn't understand. Smile is not competitive like that, or Smile doesn't want to think that he's not competitive, but we all know the truth. But Smile doesn't get the competition angle as much, so seeing these two rivals that have known each other since the table tennis days is so fascinating. And what's even more fascinating is this guy is the one that beat Smile at the middle school finals. But Smile and him don't have a rivalry. Instead, it's Pico, because Pico's the one that's got as much flair and like flamboyance towards it as anything. And Smile's just like, Sakuma. Yeah, Sakuma. And I love they show like the thing on his head. I love Pico's expressions in this episode. They're great. And he's like, Smile, are you still clinging to Pico like a turd on a goldfish? What an expression! Oh my god. Say hi to Baba at Tamara for me. I love that Smile's just like, I will. Is Smile somewhat neurodivergent? Probably. I feel like him humming the entire time and starting to sing. I'm surprised they didn't call it out in the episode unless it was just a stylistic choice to emphasize as the background music. I'm surprised they didn't call it out. And that Kong wasn't like, could you stop humming for 5 seconds? But maybe the humming was just metaphorical and it wasn't actually him humming the entire game. But it's like him humming the theme song of the hero. Now, the fact, again, I feel like Smile is going to play in a future episode again and have a rematch with Kong maybe because... Or it might not be Kong, but he might face against somebody like Cosmo or somebody in a future episode. Because we got the hero being hinted at, but we never heard the hero's name. And so the moment they didn't show us that, and it never came out in the episode, I'm like, okay, they're saving that. They're going to save that hero emerging for a future episode. So that'd be really cool to see when it finally goes down. But yeah, but Sakuma's like, you always cry when you lose, so get ready to ball into your handkerchief. And he's like, I'll smash your glasses! He's playing the first game for Kaio. Now, Sakuma's interesting because Sakuma, was a rising star from middle school, got scouted by the prestigious team. He clearly looks up to Kazuma because Kazuma's their third year and their best player. And so there is a really interesting dynamic where Sakuma doesn't exactly understand why Kazuma's so focused on Smile, because Sakuma does not clearly value Smile as a player. He thinks he's just a turd following around Pico. So I'm sure that for Sakuma, it frustrates him to see Kazuma spending so much time and so much interest in someone that Sakuma does not even recognize as a worthy player whatsoever. And he's trying to wrap his mind around why his idol would do that, right? Also, what's interesting is they're like, don't worry about him. And Sakuma's like, oh, he's in the restroom. And the one coach says, you'll understand his pain someday. And that was such a line, because what that's suggesting is that the coach is like, Kazuma has a lot riding on this. Kazuma's entire career rides on this tournament, and he's representing our entire school, and he's got so much pressure on him if he doesn't perform, and that's why he's probably got an upset stomach, and that's why that. He's like, one day, if you make it to a third year and you're our star player, you'll get why he's in pain, and you'll be in that same pain too. And I'm like, it's kind of creepy in that moment, and, oh. But anyway, I love that Kong's like, whatever, you could play these people, they're not any good. And then the moment that he sees Smile, the Renaissance way he's like, that's the kid. That's who I want to watch. Oh, Kong. Oh, my dude. Kong's obsession with Smile is so good. I'm very curious. He's like, I feel like I've been saved. Well, foreshadowing, you were saved by playing Smile and making it to the final, but I don't think Cosmo's going to go easy on you. That's the thing. Smile took pity on him and lost and forfeit the game. I don't think Cosmo will. I think Cosmo's like, I don't like, especially after Kong. Cosmo was being nice. And when Cosmo's like, hi, ni hao, and then he just like walks over and walks past him. What's funny is that Kong goes out of his way to recognize Smile, to play against him because he respects him. He respects Smile's talent. And will that change because Smile went easy and forfeit the game on purpose? Will Kong even recognize it? But then you have Kazuma, who was trying to be respectful to Kong and was like, hi, ni hao, how you doing? And then Kong was like, not worth my time. The question is if Kong and Kazuma play, is Kazuma going to be like, oh, hi again. Remember how you were an asshole to me? I don't think Kazuma would be that petty, but I do think Kazuma will be like, I'm not going to go easy on you because I have as much pressure riding on this as you do. And that's the thing. I think either way, it wouldn't have mattered if Smile had beaten Kong and then played against Kazuma in the final. Then Kazuma would have been like, I have so much riding on this. And Smile would have been like, okay, you win. I don't think it would have mattered. I think Smile would have let either of them win because in Smile's mind, they have more at stake than he does. Which is, we'll talk about it when we get to it. And they're like, isn't that Kong? There's a little bit, interestingly enough, there's a little bit like, I don't know if I want, using the word racism is a heavy word. And I'm a white girl, so I don't know. Should I be throwing that word around? But stereotypical is maybe stereotyping is a little bit the better word here, because then being like, you speak Japanese, and then the one guy was like, hey, China, like, I was like, ooh. I was like, yikes, which this was from, 10 years ago, so times have changed, but I was like, ooh, interesting. What's fascinating is there's another series that I've watched, Ace of the Diamond, where there's a character, I'm gonna get this wrong, I think they're from Taiwan, but they're from out of the country and they come about, but everyone there is very open towards that character, and they're very much like, oh, like it's cool that he's there and everything, and he kind of has an uphill battle as a character in that series. Here, there's a lot of, which granted, Kong gives it right back. Kong says they're all terrible, so he gives it right back, but it is interesting how they're like, oh, well, he's from China and like such and such, and making stereotypes and assumptions about him, which is very fascinating to see in this series, right? Let's see how well he represents his country. I'm like, oof. Yeah, I like the one redhead that's there with the mask on in the audience. I thought, yeah, and they cough and everything. So then Cosmo comes around. Nothing pisses me off more than hearing slander directed towards him. Again, Cosmo is very Ushijima-like. We literally have Ushijima, Oikawa, and Kageyama. This series is like in Haikyuu if Kageyama was the main character instead of Hinata. That's really what we have. And then we have Ushijima wants Kageyama to come to Shiratorizawa, and Oikawa's over here from another country. That's literally the dynamic that I'm seeing, and I love it because those three are three of my favorite characters in Haikyuu. But yeah, I love Cosmo's kind of white knight position where he's like, how dare they direct slander at him? That's not very nice. I think even though Kong absolutely ignored him and brushed him off like an asshole, I think Cosmo will still be nice because that's just his nature. He's very, very, very lawful good in terms of that. And they're like, who's the baldy? And they're like, quiet. He's like, I'm Cosmo of Kaio and I want to speak with you. And Smile's like, everybody wants to speak with me. Like Human League's Everybody Wants You is playing in the background. It's like, don't you have a meeting to go to? And I like Cosmo, like, tries to, in a very interesting way, Cosmo gets under Smile's skin, being like, am I bothering you? Is there something wrong with me being here? And I love Cosmo, Smile's like, ugh. He's like, you wear your emotions all over your face. So yeah, so then we see the game develop between them, and him just like Kong just mopping the floor with everyone. Like, good for him. Good for him. And I love them watching the game. He's like, Murata couldn't even score a single point. There's a gulf of skill between them. It's hard to tell. Cosmo brings up a good point. He's like, because Kong is not being challenged, Cosmo's like, we can't really detect how good he is because he's just kind of breezing through everybody. So it's hard to be able to analyze him as a player and know how to face him if you don't know what he's like at his best. Right? But Smile says he's overdoing it. Smile's like, if he were to be crushed like that in front of all these people, he'd never recover. I like that mindset that Smile brings to it, because Smile kind of seems to understand a little bit of where Kong comes from. And that's also the reason he throws the match. because he kind of gets it. He gets what Kong's doing. He's like, Kong is trying so hard because he doesn't want to go home. And Cosmo's saying, you're a kind soul. And I love that immediately Smile's like, I'm not kind. Stop. I love the dynamic Smile has with all these characters. But yeah, Kong is just... And then, of course, that's when Sakuma sees them sitting over there together, and he's like jealous Kohai. Like, what are you doing with Senpai? Why are you talking with him? Why do you get special privileges? Kong knows the terror of table tennis more than anyone. His life changed when he was kicked off the national team. So honestly, this was kind of like a building block domino effect. Cosmo telling Smile about Kong's backstory, Smile hearing from the coach and getting it reinforced to know that it's true. Those things kind of added up to him throwing the match. So he was kicked off the national team. And then I was like, man, Cosmo knows all the tea, but Cosmo's coach is working for the most prolific team in the industry, who also probably is hearing all the dirt from the overseas international teams. So it's no wonder that he would know, being the third year at the top of the chain, all the information about it. Playing in this island nation is not what he wanted. And it's like, if he conquers Japan, he could be able to make a comeback in his own country, which you can tell from his actions. That's what Kong wants. He wants to go back to his country and do well. But staying in Japan will be difficult, and it could be the end of his career otherwise. And for Smile does not want to admit that he likes table tennis a lot. He tells Cosmo to his face, he's like, your obsession with the sport is creepy. Anybody who obsesses over a sport like that, like the episode's called Devoting Your Life to Table Tennis is Creepy. He's like, devoting your life to this one thing is creepy. I don't know why you're doing this. Like, and Smile believes he can't relate. So whenever he sees Kong in the situation where he could lose, it's almost like Smile feels almost guilty. Like, if I win, is that right? Because I don't care as much for this activity, or at least I'm not projecting that I care that much for this activity. Is it fair for me to beat you when you're so devoted to it? But that's kind of just the nature of the game, right? That's the nature of the game. And that's something that a lot of sports anime talk about because it's so applicable to real life. There are people who care a lot about the things they're involved with. And then there are others who are naturally talented that don't care as much, but they get, and it's, life is unfair at times. And that's one of the hardest lessons, is that you either keep going and keep trying to get there, or you give up. But it's, and it's one of those things where it's like, do you believe more in the hard work mentality that you'll get there if you keep working hard and you devote yourself, or do you go an easier route for more satisfaction and instant gratification? It's something that you feel as a content creator all the time. And I've talked about that in my update video for January. It's something I can relate to with that. I coach speech, and I very much understand that some people are like, forensics, that activity and communications, it's kind of, some people are like, it kind of feels cultish sometimes because everybody gets so devoted to it. But I would say any activity, any sport, any club, anything you're involved in, whether it's, my family showed livestock when I was a kid, and I've seen the dog show world and the livestock showing world. It's the same thing. Whenever you get involved in an activity and a community that is so focused and engaged in this one thing, yeah, it can seem creepy because you devote yourself to it. But that's the thing. It's part of you. It's an extension of your own identity. Like, these sports, these activities, they are extensions of yourself that you get involved in, and they make you stronger, and they help feed that passion that you naturally have. And so, yeah, it can seem creepy, but that's kind of the point. And I love that Smile's being challenged by Cosmo. I feel like Cosmo challenges Smile, and Kong kind of caters to him a little bit. Not really, but in a sense of him being kind of obsessed with him. And then Cosmo says, I hate how you play. And Smile's like, oh, I love that turn from Smile where he's like, because, most people, they get aggravated by him. But for Cosmo, who's so easygoing, to be like, I hate how you play. And Smile's like, where did this come from? And he says, your skills are amazing, but the way you consider your opponent's feelings is repulsive. And I feel like even Smile throwing the game, like, that would piss off Cosmo. Because he's like, Smile throwing the game is literally taking pity on his opponent, and that's the last thing anybody wants. Cosmo will probably, if he saw him in the hallway, would probably be like, look, you're supposed to play your opponents at full blast. Respect your opponent and their skills by challenging them at 100%. Don't take it easy on them. Don't take pity on them. Like, that's not fair and respectful to them. And Smile would be like, well, I did. So what now? But, oh, I love Cosmo calling him out, and it pisses Smile off. I love it. He's like, you're not fit to hold a racket. I despise it. And then I love that basically Smile leaned back like Michael Jordan in The Last Dance and went, and I took that personally. He was like, I took that personally. I don't appreciate you stating that so bluntly. And Cosmo's like, well, bitch, deal with it. That puts a fire under Smile from what Cosmo said, because Smile is easily emotionally impacted. And so Smile's like, you're calling me out and challenging me. Well, fine. You know, I can definitely sense the coach knows that Smile is like a volcano ready to erupt. And once he erupts, it's going to spew out all sorts of things. And Cosmo's just like, that's just how it is. And then Sakuma shows up. I like as soon as Sakuma shows up, Smile kind of retreats into himself. Like the coach said, he becomes a turtle and he kind of retreats whenever he sees Sakuma. In this moment, Smile and Cosmo were like challenging each other and kind of bantering back and forth, being like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then Sakuma's like, what? We have to go, Cosmo. And Smile immediately like withdraws back like an eel into the cave. Mm-hmm. And he's like, fine. Yeah, Sakuma just likes interrupting that moment. But damn, Cosmo. Damn, Kong. The facial expressions of the guy that Kong beat is amazing. Amazing. The match goes to Kong. And so everybody's like, damn, Murata didn't last at least 10 minutes. That was sad. I love that immediately Kong doing his hair every time he wins. Shut up. Meanwhile, the coach is like, could you please focus, Smile, on this match and stop holding back when you play? It's a bad habit. If you hold back, it's gonna, you know. I will say this. That is a very good point. From coaching speech, there are little things that people do. Like, if you get into a habit of doing something, it's very hard to break. Like, in speech, you have to speak in a certain rate. You have to be able to be articulate and for people to understand you. And there's tone inflections. There's things that you do as a speaker that make what you're saying comprehensible to your audience and to stand out. And if you get, one of the biggest killers in a speech competition is going too fast. And sometimes people are I myself am one of them, a very naturally fast talker. And so I have to slow myself down a lot. And I had to train myself to slow myself down as a speaker. And if students get in a habit of talking very fast in their speech, you muscle memory that. And so bad habits are hard to break. So I can get why the coach is like, you need to quit doing that. You need to go all out. And then Cosmo's like, I'm going to win. Just give me the request. You want me to win by 5 points, 2 points, skunk him, anything. And the coach is like, oh, I love the coach starting out going, I don't know to trust you. And saying, you know what brought this on? He's like, Kong, beat him in 10 minutes. So I'll finish him off in 5. And I like that the coach is like, did something happen? Did you have a revelation? And then Smile's like, I just want to win. Is that wrong? And he's like, no, it's very good. I like that's all the coach says. The coach is like, oh, I don't know who lit a fire under your ass in the last 5 minutes, but if it puts you in a good mindset, you go. I have nothing to say. Go. Now, do I think the coach is going to have something to say to him after throwing that match? Yeah, I do. But we'll have to cross that bridge in episode 4. So then Sakuma's like, you're not usually hard on people, Kazuma. And Kazuma, what I'm so excited about is the coach wants Smile to go all out. Kazuma wants Smile to go all out. He's like, it'll be good for him. I want him to go all out because I want to play people at their best. And that's why I feel like Cosmo will be really pissed if he knows that Smile threw the match. And I think that Kong, despite Kong being like, oh, sure, you went easy on me. Okay, easy win for me. I'm not going to complain. I'm sure deep down, Kong is going to be pissed because if he finds out that Smile went easy on him, he's like, oh, are you mocking me and my abilities? That's what I think. So I feel like Cosmo and Kong are both similar in that, I feel like they're both similar in that they want the best out of their opponents. And then Sakuma says that Smile's always on a high horse. and that he's known him since the days of playing in the table tennis hall together. So then Kazuma's like, hey, you know him really well. Ask him to come to our school. And Sakamo's like, Sakamo's like, I don't want to ask him to come to our school, because I feel like Sakamo likes the glory of being on Kaio's team and being one of the top players, and he knows if Smile comes to their school and levels up, he'll be better than Sakuma, which is interesting because Sakuma beat him at middle school, so interesting. But then Kazuma's like, we need more players, and it's going to be trouble if it's just me and you next year, so the more the merrier. But damn, I love that Kong is indoors. Kong is indoors in this table tennis hall, and he has his sunglasses on. I'm like, I wear my sunglasses at night. I'm like, there's no reason for you to wear your sunglasses inside the building. He's just acting too cool for school. I'm like, Kong, you are being ridiculous. Oh my God. But yeah, and then, Cosmo does the universal handshake of, hello, Kong, ni hao, ni hao. Like, hi, how you doing? There's no confusing this handshake. And I'm like, and Kong just walks right past him, puts the sunglasses up like, bitch, no. And I love the coach is like, that was Kazuma. And he's like, I don't care. I am not from Japan or China. He's like, that's Kazuma. And he's like, I don't like guys like him. And of course, they just ignore Sakuma. I love that Kazuma's the hand up like, well, saw how that went. I feel like maybe Kong feels like Kazuma's a kiss ass, and he doesn't like that. I don't think Kazuma's a kiss ass, but maybe that's just Kong's perspective about him. What I was going to say is, I'm not from Japan or China. I don't know why Kazuma held out his hand. I'm like, I know in Japan you bow slightly. I'm like, do you not do that in China? Or maybe there's a cross-cultural thing where they just don't do that to each other. I know there's a big history there, but I don't know much about it. So then we have Suda, one of my favorite voice actors. You can instantly recognize Suda's voice. It's like clear as a bell. You can recognize it. He comes in as this hippie-ish fro table tennis player to be here for this one episode. Oh my God. Also, I'm sorry. I'm not going to spoil Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 for you all. You can go watch that on your own time. I've got reactions on the channel. It's one of my favorite reactions that I've done on this channel is Season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. All I will say is the fact that Suda plays this like mature character that just wants to go to the beach and have a vacation. And this came out 10 years before Season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. The Fudge Show. The Fudge. What? I'm just saying the coincidence. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. You can all talk about it in the comments down below. But yeah. So this guy plays Smile and basically just is like, this is my third year. He's like, it's only my third. I won't lose my third tournament to a first year. And then he loses this third tournament to a first year. But yeah, Smile's just like, I'm going to beat him, and that's that. And he just basically wipes. He's like, is he saving his energy? He sure is confident. Yeah. I really like the idea that Cosmo says this isn't table tennis. There's no competitiveness to it. He's just basically underestimating his opponent and just toying with him. Yeah. I love when he's like, he didn't even touch that return. This isn't table tennis. Yeah, Smile's just toying with him. He knows he can beat him, and there's so much arrogance in this match, and the coach is like, come on, Smile. I also love that anytime Suda plays a character, he immediately goes into this philosophical rant at some point with that character. And he's like, I really just want to go to the beach. Which, in itself, shows that despite Suda's character saying that he wanted to win, it was his last tournament, his mind wasn't really even there, and he was already done. He was already defeated in his mind, ready to go to the beach, be done with it. He was already done long before the match even got underway. And then, yeah, Smile wins in that moment. And so then, I like that the coach, after that, goes up to there. He's been hiding. I like that the one guy on the team says that Smile was hiding this awesome quick attack. Like, that was actually really good. And then the coach is like, that was a sloppy quick attack. I've done that as a coach where I've had a teammate on our team do something in a speech, and the teammate on the team with him was like, that was so cool. And in my head, I'm like, that's not polished. So as soon as the coach said that, I'm like, I know exactly what you're saying. Because yeah, it's like when you're a teammate, you compare your skills to your teammate's skills, and you do a comparison that way. So yeah, something may seem really cool, but to somebody that's seasoned, that's done it for years and has seen better, it's like, no, that wasn't as good as it could have been. Love it. And he's like, it was a diversion. He's like, well, don't you have any other way? I was taking my mind off the time-killing sport of table tennis with a quick attack. That's the thing. Smile is still like, oh, I was just, this time-killing table tennis. I just did something different. It's fine. He's so arrogant. So arrogant. And then Cosmo's like, time-killing sport. And I love that it's like Smile declaring war to Cosmo, being like, devoting your life to table tennis is nonsense. It's beyond comprehension. It's creepy. And Cosmo just smiles like, oh, that's where you're going with this? Oh, sure, yeah, okay, all right. I love their dynamic so much. I love it. Smiles like, this game is stupid. It's just passing the time. I can't help that I'm naturally talented. What now? And which that in itself, of Cosmo just smiling like it's irking him. I feel like Cosmo and Kong, if they face one another, is going to show to Smile being like, you think this game is stupid and you don't see the point, but to the two of us, it is everything because we are so connected to it and you don't deserve to be here. I love everything going on in this episode with it. And then Kong's like, when do we dance? If all goes well, the third round, he's like, okay, 2 more games from now, huh? Love. Yep. So then, the fact that Pico just bit into that gari, the ice pop, and the a stew-flavored pop. No, I'm sorry. When I think of popsicles, I think of, sweet flavors. Then we cut to this one team. He's like, summer's too hot. Pico's so emotional. Then we have the one girlfriend who's the manager with her star boyfriend. She's like, the process is important. And then he says in return, I love that he's like, well, who cares about that? Men are all about appearances. I like calling out masculinity in this sports anime like this because usually you don't hear that phrase, men are all about appearances. But it is nice to acknowledge that, yeah, the way that men look, they take a lot of stock in that for various reasons. So I'm glad that that's pointed out in this. And then she's like, well, forfeiting would be far more embarrassing. And he's like, the Chinese players are so strong. And she's like, well, you can't know that he's strong just because he's Chinese. She's like, some Africans are terrible at dancing. I'm like, white man can't jump. Even if you lose, I like you more when you try, Pokun. Well, good for her and him. I like that she's still disappointed in him. And she's like, well, he's a dropout. She's like, you might just win. And I was like, that's not going to happen. And then the match goes to Kong. And he says, of course not. And she seems so unimpressed. And then I love that Kong just had those glasses at the ready. He just has sunglasses ready to go. He's like, yes, another match won. Ridiculous. I love Kong so much. He's my favorite. So yeah, then we have our top people. Our top people, we have Kong is in the top, our top 6. So we have Kong going into the quarterfinals, Smile, we have Sakuma, then we have Pico, and then obviously Kazuma is in there too, advancing to round 3. Okay. So yeah. And then Smile's just like, it's like the calm before the storm as they're getting ready to go. And he's like, well, Sakuma's not like he was at the table tennis place. It's going to be a cinch. And he's like, you're really stuck on this. And so Smile says, do you believe in heroes? I love Pico's expression. Like, Pico's expressions in this whole scene were absolutely adorable, where he's like looking so skeptical at Smile. Like, I don't know. He says, when I'm in trouble, he always comes to save me, no matter how deep the hole I'm trapped in. And he's like, well, heroes don't exist. That only happens in comic books. And it says, to protect the peace on Earth, here from planet Ping Pong. And And he says, I believed. No one can beat me. The hero of righteousness. That's me. I've been waiting for him for a long time. I love that shot of him with the hero over him. Only it doesn't look like a man at that moment. It looks almost like a monster, which the more we get into the series, the more it's like, no, Smile is a monster. So I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, that's so wild. But yeah, the totally invincible hero is me. And that's kind of the thing. A lot of it is Smile believing in himself. And I feel like Smile was super, super close to getting to that place. But then he retreats. He flies away because he feels guilty that he doesn't have as much at stake and doesn't value what's going on as much as the people around him. So it's not that the hero is himself. He is the hero. It's him, mind over matter. It's his own psychoschematic, state. But in that moment, he didn't fully believe. And it says, my name is. And so Pico's like, well, heroes or whatever, don't change up you'll develop weird habits if you change up your style so easily. And it says, my name is Chicka Chicka Slim Shady. I'm waiting for it. And he's like, okay. So here's the thing. In the match, the coach gives him this new racket, which I'm like, I don't know if I would give somebody a new racket right before a match. And he's like, well, what's this pimpled rubber? And he's like, I had fresh rubber put on it. And he's like, well, I can't play with this. And he's like, try it out. He's like, I'm up against Pong. And he's like, oh, do you think it's not enough? And again, I feel like the coach maybe has caught on that when Smile is challenged, it's kind of like feeding a baby deer. If you just come out and tell him what to do, you have to use reverse psychology. Because if you just tell Smile, oh, you have to win, this is how it has to be, then Smile retreats. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. But if you challenge him without challenging him, then he takes that upon himself. So the coach being like, oh, hey, I want to give you a challenge because I know you'll work through it because that's just how you are. So here's this new racket with this different texture. You're going to have to get used to it, but it's going to challenge you and you're going to want to feel stimulated and motivated to rise above that challenge. If you feel like you're not being challenged, you don't see the point in it. He's like, maybe the coach is trying everything in his power to get Smile out of his shell and using all these different methods. And Smile is the type of person you can't tell him what to do. You have to just give him opportunities and let him run with it. Let him be in control. That's Smile's whole thing. And in this moment, at the end of the match, Smile has the control to choose what he ends up doing. But yeah. And so Kong being like, I'm kind of nervous. And the coach is like, just play like you always do. Like, why are you saying you're nervous? Why? I love that Kong is he's like, I don't dislike feeling nervous. I like having a sensation of a challenge. And Smile, meanwhile, he just looks so serious. I love it. I love he looks so serious despite, And then Sakuma's like, they're playing over there, Kazuma. Are we going to go watch? And he's like, yeah. He's like, can I ask you something? And he's like, you seem so interested in Smile. Why? And he's like, well, the answer's complicated. I like it. I like Cosmo's very honest. Talent isn't granted to only those who want it. I love that. That's so true. I love it. Because I like the Smile immediately is humming and getting in a rhythm around Kong because he is kind of nervous. And he's like, I know how talented he is. Cosmo brings up a really good point. That's probably the hardest part about a competition in any sport, speech, ping pong, anything, is the fact that there are some people out there who are naturally gifted, and it can be so frustrating. I had two people on the team that I coached last year, and they both competed in similar activities, in similar events. One person practiced so much. They worked so hard. They practiced, they peer coached, they worked with people. They were probably in the lab working 10, 12 hours a week on their stuff. And then you had another student who maybe they practiced on their own in their own time. They could have. I'm not going to say that they didn't, but they did not peer coach hardly at all. They wouldn't show up for practices. They'd make excuses. And then we would go to a tournament and that person would win. And the one that tried so hard would get third or fourth. And it was so frustrating as a coach because the person that worked so hard would be like, why are they getting off the hook? And I'm like, and it's hard because you get onto the person that wins and you're like, you need to practice more, you need to peer coach more. And they're like, why? I won. You're like, and as a coach, you're like, well, damn it. Yeah, they did win. So it's like, and it's just how unfair it is. Some people have natural talent and they have to work. Granted, they do have to put in some work, but there are others that will put in 3 times as much work as that person and won't get to where that person is just because of natural ability and luck. It's like, it's so hard as a coach to explain to that person that tries so hard, because you want to tell the person that tries so hard, you're like, no, it's still worth it. You're still doing well. You're still getting 3rd and 4th when there are others that aren't even making it to the final round. So it is still worth it, but you can sense their frustration and it's valid. And you're like, yeah, there's not much I can tell you about that, but it's like you're still putting in effort and it's paying off. It's just, it's an unfortunate fact of life. And it's like, you have to be comfortable with that. And it's hard to deal with, but Cosma touches on a real thing where it's like, yeah, it's difficult to deal with. But yeah, so I like them passing over the rackets and everything. I guess that's a rite of passage, but the humming, everything, the montage, all of this, do your best, Kong. And the 2 of them playing. And at first it felt like a lot of this match just felt like Smile getting used to the racket and trying to get used to the feel of it, but also being challenged by Kong, who is actually really good, and Kong being like, is that all he's got? And I love that Kong is like, he's focused, but then Smile gets pissed. And he's like, I don't want to lose to this guy. I said that I was going to beat him, so I don't want to. He's like, and Kong says, you know, this environment's not good for you. You'll get rusty in a greenhouse. He's like, if you're in an environment where you're not challenged, you're not going to grow. And he's like, I have a stake in this. I have reasons to go back. He's like, I know. And I do appreciate that Kong, despite being kicked out by his country and despite being kicked out, he doesn't have any resentment to his country. He actually wants to go back and he actually wants to play again there. You know, you could see how sometimes if a player was kicked out, he's like, well, fine, I'll make a name in Japan and take over here and I don't need my home country anymore. No, Kong wants to go back and he likes his home country. He wants to go back home. He wants to play. He wants to be with those people. But he's like, this is showing him that he's like, you all are spoiled and I need to go back to where the competition is greater and I feel challenged. And I love his motivation. Like he says, however, I have a place to return to. I have a stake. He's like, a country of plenty. I like that. I like that he says that. But Smile's naturally talented and he has so much potential. And I like that Pico kind of slips over there. Again, the coach says the same thing that Smile's coach says. And he's like, oh, your play is sloppy. Is that the best you can expect of this country's players? And Smile's like, nope, I'm just getting warmed up. I like that Smile took some time to get warmed up and he starts calculating. He starts doing the robot calculations. It's the blue robot, not the hero, but the mechanical robot. And he starts firing back against him. And he's like, Kong's missing his returns. I like Cosma's like, what do I think about this? And the coach is getting excited because he's like, oh, we might actually not be done here. Great. That would be wonderful. And he's like, yeah. And then, of course, the coach is like, he's reading you like a book. Interesting. I love watching this back and forth. And then the match gets tied. So it's down to best out of 3. The animation, y'all, the fact that they seem so far from the table, and maybe they are in real life, but I just can't imagine being that far back from the ping pong table and returning it and doing all of that. I can't imagine it. And but that's exactly what happens. And the animation does so well in this. And then you have Obaba saying, why don't you put yourself out there already? Why don't you go for this? And then the coach is like, you're always hiding in your shell, Smile. And I feel like Smile maybe is afraid of if he does well and he proves himself, like, is he always going to have to keep up to that expectation? There's going to be that pressure of keeping on that same level. I feel like there is a part of Smile that likes the idea that he can just retreat whenever he wants to and he doesn't have to take it seriously. And that's when Cosmo's like, talent, huh? Right. He's like, perfect. And even Pico's like, damn, okay, come on, Smile. You got this. But, they're like, China might lose. I love that we see kind of like towards the end of the match, before we even know the final conclusion, we start to see the aftermath and people kind of hinting at what the results are. That part was interesting, and it also like made me like tense up. And like some guy from Kata High, a first year, and they're like, really? Like nobody really even knew Smile before this match, and they're like, there's another amazing kid. But yeah, and the game goes to Tsukimoto. Okay. So what do we do? So they kept playing. I guess it was maybe best 3 out of 5 is what they ended up doing. And so that's why they kept playing. Your emotional turmoil throws your play into chaos, King Kong. Yeah, so then Sakuma's like, he was just inputting his data from the beginning. And then they start to call him a machine again. They say a machine unparalleled in his accuracy. And Obaba's like, he's revealing his true nature. I like the one guy interrupts going, you can't smoke in here. Like that part was really funny, the levity. And then of course, is he going to win? And Smile would have won. He would have won if the coach hadn't said what he did. They're like, Tsukimoto looks so awesome right now. And Kong really looks challenged in that moment. And that's when the coach speaks up as he's like, if you lose this game, it's over. And he's like, triumph over the guy who removed you from the team. Don't play cocky. Respond. And he's like, yes, sir. And Kong, for the first time, Kong looks really kind of scared. He's like, you're not here for sightseeing. For the first time, Kong looks really like kind of weak in that moment and scared that if he loses, that's it. I don't know if Smile can understand Chinese because Smile gets affected by what the coach is saying, but I think it's even just the body language. Like in this moment, the coach yelling at him and Kong's body language, I think says everything that needs to be known. The coach is yelling at him how much is at stake in this game. And Kong is like, yeah. And in that moment, you see Smile look over at him like, oh, yeah, okay. And he just kind of stares. And even the coach is staring at Smile like, don't get any ideas about throwing this match. But that's what he does. And then Kong gets pissed because he's like, this is it. And you can see whatever the coach said fired Kong up. And I think Smile, because when Smile kind of looks down in that moment, it's like, yeah, he realized exactly what was going on. And is like, I'm going to throw this match so that Kong can stay. Because in Smile's mind, Kong has more reason to be here. And the coach is just like, shit. Damn it. We were doing so well. We were doing so well. And like, why are his returns so inconsistent? And I love Obaba's being like, good grief. It looks like he'll win in the end. The first year's just defending now. Yeah, there's an instant turn. And then the girls are like, oh, that first year was cute, wasn't he? Yeah, you said it. It came down to a difference in endurance. No, it didn't. It came down to Smile giving up because he didn't want Kong to lose. Now, says Kong advances to round 4. Does Kong realize what Smile did? That's the question. And then we see the one guy on the beach saying, I made it to the beach. Was it worth it? Yeah, I've talked for an hour about this episode. Oh! But yeah, no, I just, I definitely think it's in Smile's character that he threw the round. I think that it was in Smile's character for him to throw the round. I'm not surprised by that, honestly. But in the same vein, it sucks. It sucks because it's like, I hate that Smile threw the round, but also it feels appropriate for his character at this stage of the game that he did so. Do I think that that's the last time we're going to see Smile play in this series? No, we still have 8 more episodes. It feels like we're already at round 4. So now they're down to Kong has made it over here into this round. You still have Kazuma, Sakuma, and Pico. Kazuma has made it to this round, I'm assuming. Or, oh, we have to play, the final. Oh, so the quarterfinals is what Pico made it to. So now it's possibly going to be Sakuma versus Pico and Kazuma. I want Kazuma and Kong to play one another, so I'm hoping that we get that because I want to see the two of them play. And I want the coach to be like, Smile, you're going to watch them play. Because Smile, I don't know if Pico can win against Sakuma. I don't. I think Pico might lose because Pico gets arrogant. like Smile. So I don't know how that's going to go. But I want to see Kong and Cosmo play because I want to see their philosophies pan out. I want to see Cosmo show Smile. Like, I want to see Cosmo beat Kong because I want to see Cosmo be like, no, this is how this is going to go. We don't take pity on people. I want to see that happen. But then I'm like, if Kong loses, does he get sent back in disgrace? Does he get to stay? I'm so invested in these characters already, and I love that about this series. I'm really invested, and I want to see what Smile ends up doing in the future episodes. Like, if he plays any more matches, I want to see how this inner high keeps going. We don't have a lot of time with this series, but I already am so invested, and I love these characters so much. So, and the artwork was just so good. So good. The style has really grown on me. The style, I was a little bit adversely affected by at first, but the style really works for what this series does with it, and the series knows how to make it, how to use it properly. So it's really grown on me, especially that OP. That OP was great. So yeah. Anyway, I'm excited to hear your comments down below. But in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 4 of Ping Pong.